All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about Bill Belichick once again. Again, an article I was reading on Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report has become like my best friend when it comes to, you know, coming up with topics lately. Because they have a lot of stuff on their site. But this was just a recent article, just talking about why Belichick didn't get a job. This comes from also The Athletic as well. They reference The Athletic here. So, I mean, again, it's really more stuff that we've talked about. Like, we've covered this stuff. But, again, this is just another, uh, you know, um, I don't know what I was trying to say there. But, yeah, you get it. This is just more to the story, is what I was trying to say. So, yeah, I mean, according to The Athletic, again, it runs deeper than the mere fact that he's about to turn 72. And yeah, it really just goes into the fact that Belichick, was used to, being in charge and having more of a role as opposed to just being a head coach, being the general manager, drafting the players. And, it just also apparently he had a frosty, as it says here, a frosty relationship with Atlanta president Rich McKay, and that was a concern for the Falcons. Because, again, Belichick had a couple of interviews with them. But it just, yeah, and really it's about the concern over how the former Patriots coach would fit into the team's uh, uh, thing here. So, um, that's really what it comes down to. And then sources with multiple teams that just hired new head coaches expressed varying degrees of relief Belichick wasn't joining their team. Some were concerned Belichick would overhaul the leadership structure and the order of command. So yeah, I mean, again, that goes back to what we were talking about, the power struggle. That they just did not want Belichick to, you know, have be in control. And yeah, I mean, because again, you're impacting people's jobs, and you don't want to, you don't want to lose your job. If you bring in, Belichick, who has been the general manager for the Patriots essentially. Um, Also, teams across the league were also concerned by how the defensively focused Belichick managed the Patriots' offense during his final seasons in New England. Yeah, I mean, listen, look, after McDaniels left, you bring in, which was Mac Jones' best year. Um, you bring in Joe Judge and Matt Patricia to be your offensive coordinators. When Joe Judge is a special teams guy and Matt Patricia was a defensive guy. And then you bring in Bill O'Brien, you bring him back, and again, the offense just was just bad this year. Um, Also, one concern also was reportedly the coach's fractured relationship with quarterback Mac Jones. Belichick stopped speaking to Jones following his benching in Week 12 of the 2023 campaign, according to a Thursday report from Mass Live's Mark Daniels. Um, yeah, I mean, it seemed like that relationship was just not the best. I mean, Mac Jones has gotten benched, and he had to bring him back in. I mean, it was a mess. Again, the Patriots, ever since Tom Brady left, it just was a downward spiral from there for the Pats. And yeah, the quarterback position just it wasn't good. Just was not good. Um, Another was Belichick's hiring of Matt Patricia, who held extensive experience. Oh yeah, I just said this. Yeah, they brought him in to be their offensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, when he was a defensive guy. But again, that was just one of Belichick's guys, and he wanted to bring him back. Um, but So Robert Kraft might have been swayed to keep Belichick if the head coach had committed to changing certain strategies with the personnel development or department, roster construction, and his offensive vision. However, Belichick wouldn't bend that far. Um, Belichick could still be interested in returning to the NFL if one of those, if certain spots open up in 2025. Yeah, I mean, it really does, boggle my mind that he just did not get a job. But I understand. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, again, if you're not and I've been saying this, if you're not willing to adapt, then it's going to be hard for you to find a job. And if that's the case, if he does not want to adapt and take a back seat and, you know, just be the head coach instead of, being in charge of other things, including drafting play, obviously you'll be a part of those conversations, but, you're not going to be the guy that has the final say. Um, it, yeah, it is why it still is wild that he's not going to be coaching. I mean, the Commanders, they bring in Dan Quinn. I mean, I feel like I take Belichick over Dan Quinn, but I get it because you draft a young quarterback. I mean, do you want Belichick to be the guy to, bring him along after what just happened with Mac Jones? So I get that. Although I think there probably would have been somebody else to bring in, better than Dan Quinn, even if it wasn't Belichick. But that hire still just does not make sense to me. But especially because Dan Quinn was in their own division, and was in their own and how the Cowboys defense performed against the Packers. I don't understand why they thought that was a good idea, but that's what they decided to do. So, you know. But I mean, it's the other thing the article also says is just there's head coaching jobs that open up every single year. So there's going to be I mean Belichick's going to get an interview next year, I would imagine. But I feel like maybe this year off might be a good thing for him because maybe he can reflect and just say, maybe I do got to take a step back. But but again, it's you don't know for sure because he could sit there and say, no, I'm not changing who I am. I want to be in charge, and I'm not changing. I'm not adapting. But I mean, you're gonna have to, because then you might end up the same way you did this time, is with no coaching job. But I mean, listen, I take him as the defensive coordinator for the Giants, absolutely. But I mean, he's not going to want to do that. He wants to be a head coach, and I mean, I think he deserves that because the success that he's had over the course of his career. Although again, people are going to just talk about how Tom Brady was responsible for it, which again doesn't look good after Brady leaves and the Patriots have not won a playoff game. And they just, again, went in the downward spiral, and Brady went on and won a Super Bowl. So, I mean, really, it's just, it all comes down to Belichick not wanting to change and just how, these last couple years went in New England. Because, if the Patriots didn't skip a beat and, they were making the playoffs and they were, at least winning playoff games, not necessarily winning Super Bowls, but, at least being successful in the regular season, and somehow, Belichick ended up leaving on a better note, then, yeah, he would probably get a job right now. But I get it. And this is conversations that I've had with, obviously people a part of the GSMC Sports Network, is just, the fact that, not only, I mean, in the article it talks about how age isn't the only factor, but yeah, I mean, age does play a role into it. I mean, you go to the Commanders, a team that's rebuilding, it's going to take a few years to, you hope to be competitive. And if that's not the case, I mean, again, you're wasting, time. You want to go to a team that's established. That's why I said the Chargers could have been a good fit, because of course, having Herbert. And, I mean, obviously the cap situation is not good. But, again, like if they were able to get that under control and you're able to keep most of the players, that'd be a good fit. I know people were obviously talking about Dallas and Philadelphia, but they're keeping Sirianni, the Eagles, they're keeping McCarthy, and this is kind of this might be his last year, coming up with the Cowboys because it's his final year of his contract. And I mean, I expect more of the same from the Cowboys. I don't expect them to do anything next year. I mean, I expect them to make the playoffs, but that's about it. Because the conference is going to be better. And with McCarthy, I just don't see him as the guy for them. So, I mean, I'm hoping that Belichick doesn't go to one of those two teams. I mean, depending on what happens with the Eagles, too. But, I mean, also the Giants. I mean, we'll see what happens with Dable, you know? But, yeah, again, it's going to be very strange not seeing Belichick on the sidelines. I thought he would be a lock to get another job just because of the resume and just the fact that it's Bill Belichick. But no, people were not interested. Well, I mean, people were interested, but they weren't interested enough to say, that's our guy. We're going to hire him. But I don't know. The way some of these franchises have been for a while, like you would think, let's just forget it. We're just gonna do this. We're just gonna bring him in, try to change the team, get us out of this cycle that we've been in. But no, I guess a lot of these teams are thinking the same way. They just think it didn't really work out well towards the end in New England. The team declined, and he's gonna want to be in control, and a lot of teams that turned off a lot of teams. So again, there's going to be head coaching jobs that'll open up, next off season, and Belichick it will be a part of those conversations unless he just decides, I'm done, I'm retiring. But he still wants to coach, so we'll see. Maybe this time off will be a good thing for him to reflect and say, you know what, I got to take a step back. But who knows? I think he still deserves a job, and if it doesn't work out, if he goes to another team and it just is a disaster, like towards the end of New England, then that's it. But I think he still deserves another chance. So, we'll just have to wait. We gotta wait. Gotta wait a whole nother year, unless again somehow a coach just ends up leaving and they pick up Belichick. I don't know, but I feel like that would have happened already. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about this. Let me know what you guys think about the whole Belichick situation. Because again, I mean, I'm surprised that he has not. I mean, this is something we'll talk about, in the off season. But I would imagine. But it's just again, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird next year not seeing him on a sideline. But yeah. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll talk about Cliff Kingsbury backing out of the Raiders job, and joining the Commanders. We'll talk about some other coaching hires as well, because there's still coordinator jobs that needed to be filled. So we'll get into that when we come back from our second break of the show. But before I get into that, actually, I almost jumped ahead. Just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, like I said, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will then talk about, like I said, we'll talk about Kingsbury backing out of the Raiders job and joining the Commanders, as well as talking about some of the other coaching hires as well. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.